G'day guys, if you've got the battery icon coming up on your dash, likely it's your alternator not charging. What I found was that the icon would come on for about 10 seconds of driving at high speeds, and then it would be off for about a couple weeks, and it would come on again and off again, and it went away for about 2-3 months, and then it turned on and wouldn't actually stay wouldn't actually stay off. So here's a very quick montage of what's involved with replacing the alternator. So the fan comes out, you release that tension on the tensioner, the serpentine belt can kind of come off, and then that gives you the access to, there's two bolts here at the front holding the alternator onto the block, and at the back you've got two bolts and a nut. And that's it. So two at the front, three at the back, and that's it. She comes out. So not very difficult at all when you know what to do. And I hope this video helps for anyone that's a little bit iffy and not really sure what to do. Now, don't go ordering just any alternator for these cars, because there are a few different wiring plug versions. Some are a 2-pin, some are a 3-pin from memory. So I'll guide you all with what to do and how to check that in the video. But I have actually videoed this ages ago, guys, middle of last year. We're finally getting around to editing it for you guys. So I hope this helps you out, and let's get to it. But before we get to it, have you guys ever wondered what the Terminator, would he say the alternator? That was terrible. Okay, let's get straight to it, guys. What have we got here? We've got the dedicated LPG e-gas engine. This is the 2005 BA Falcon. What we want to start off with is we want to disconnect the battery positive terminal here to make sure that we're working safely, since we're especially working on electronics today. Disconnecting the alternator, which also has a main power lead. So disconnect that positive from the battery, and next what we need to do to get access to the alternator is remove the fan shroud. But to do that, we've actually got a air intake piping here. So two screws at the front, and with these ones out, you're able to go through and wiggle, jiggle, and tug on. Some of us have had a lot of practice with that, but give it a good wiggle, good jiggle, and she'll pop out. Awesome. All right, with that out of the way, I found someone to put some cable ties here holding this. It's like a specific LPG, air ducting piping, something here for the LPG system. So if yours is a petrol barrel, you won't have that one there. But that now with that main air, box intake pipe gone, there's two bolts holding the fan shroud in. One of them is located here. It's a 10mm bolt and quite a long thread, so just a bit of a heads up there. But with that one out, awesome, it looks like that. We can go to the other side and remove the exact same bolt on the other end. You see it's already a bit loosey-goosey. Awesome. Alright, so same thing over here on the other side, on the driver's side here, we've got that 10mm bolt. You can remove that, and then the actual fan shroud itself can come out. Now in this case, again, I've got this LPG, specific, ducting pipe attached to the fan shroud. But what we'll do before we go removing the fan shroud, guys, is we're going to remove the actual wiring plug that goes to it. So this is the loom here. There's a little push tab, and you push that little tab in, and the socket just comes out. A little bit tricky to show you guys here, but I'll disconnect it and see if I can show you guys a bit closer. There it is. So that's it. With that disconnected, you're able to jimmy your fan shroud out. Now, from factory here for these LPG models, this tubing here is actually held in with a little plastic retaining clip here. So get some long nose pliers. You're able to actually pinch in the little, you would say teeth of this plastic lug, and off she pops. So I'll see if I can get you guys a bit of a better close-up view here. And yep, there we go. So you just push in those two little teeth, and it just pops straight out. So it just avoids you from yanking it and breaking the clips and needing to cable tie it like on the other side. So you can get that coolant hose out the way. If you've got that LPG air ducting pipe, you can slightly maneuver around that. I'm not sure if there are any bolts down the bottom for the fan shroud. Mine didn't have any. I'm not sure if they've been broken off previously, but if there are, probably two more bolts. But if not, just like my situation here, you can just jimmy out the fan shroud there. Awesome. Looks like that. Beautiful. Nice. Alright, so you can go and put that aside safely. And let's continue on. So this right here is the tensioner, guys. This is what actually holds the belt tight. And we want to actually remove this belt from the alternator pulley right there. So to do that, you can get yourself a 3/4 ratchet, and that fits into the little square lug here on the bottom of the tensioner. What that does is it lets you actually turn and tighten or loosen the tensioner here. So you can get a pole, and that'll actually give you more leverage. You'll be able to see that it's starting to actually already loosen the belt. So it's with just a bit of tension to the right, you find that it all gets loose. Now, I found that I've got a breaker bar, a really long one. I used an adapter here. It was a 1/2 inch breaker bar to a 3/4 inch adapter. So you can see that right there made it so much easier to actually remove the tension on the belt. So doing that, you're able to just unhook the belt from the pulleys, and then you can release the tension on the tensioner there. So I just tucked the cable out the way. Initially I put it here, but later I moved it out the way so I could get access to the bolts. Careful here when you remove your ratchets, you don't want to go damaging your fan. Next up, you'll see that I started to just maneuver that belt out the way so I could get better access to the 2 bolts at the front of the alternator holding it to the block. Now, don't freak out too much in case you can't remember where the belt goes if you haven't done this before. Our Falcons have got a very handy dandy little image guide here, so that will show you the direction and position of the belt. Alrighty, so here's the brand new alternator. That's what it looks like. What we're going to do is essentially remove, there's 2 bolts here at the front, so I'll show you on the brand new alternator here. There's a 10mm there, a 10mm there, and from behind or underneath you can get access to, there's 2 bolts and a nut. So this nut here is the main power source lead going to the alternator. It's 13mm, and then you've got a 10mm here and a 10mm here. So with those 2 disconnected at the back, the power lead there, and the 2 at the front, the alternator can come out. So I jacked the car up, put it on a jack stand for safety, of course, but jacked the car up so I could get underneath a lot easier and awesome. So with that, let's go underneath at the back and I'll show you guys what I started with. So initially, what we can see here, this is the wiring plug. So just a very simple push-in tab and you can pull out the plug. Now, before you go ordering your alternator, because these are really expensive, they were like $350, I think this one was. Disconnect yours and have a look. Do you have a 2-pin or a 3-pin? So make sure what you're ordering matches. Next, we want to remove this little rubber boot, and that's covering the 13mm nut for the main power lead going into the alternator. So you can go and unbolt this nut here, and what we found out here was one-handed. That's right, one-handed, so it was a little tricky to get this on camera, dropping the ratchet everywhere. But yeah, you can go through very simply, unbolt this nut here, and then you've got your power lead. It's like a little ring terminal here. You can just pull that straight off. Okay, now before we can completely get it out the way, we see there's a little mounting bracket here, like a hooked over metal tab. It's been held on by a 10mm bolt right here, so we can go through and disconnect that 10mm bolt here. Since I was one-handed, I just used my ratchet gun here, but you can use a standard ratchet or spanners if that's all you've got. Awesome. So with that done, we can go through and tuck the wiring out the way, and all that we've got left now is 1 bolt at the top of the alternator here at the back. So I'll just show you guys here as a recap that we've removed our 13mm nut right over here for the power cable, and the 10mm bolt right there, and lucky last, we've got that one right there. That's a 10mm bolt again, and that's as you can see, there's a little bracket holding it to the engine block. So if you disconnect it from this side, the bracket stays to the block, but the alternator is you would say detached from the bracket here. So 10mm again, you can just go through and remove that one nice and easy, and that's all of the work done here at the back. Awesome. Alrighty guys, with that bolt out, we're all done at the back. We can go to the front now. So just a bit of a zoomed in here, you'll be able to see the 2 remaining 10mm bolts left to remove, and then the alternator can come out. So let's start at the one at the top here. I just cracked it loose but didn't remove it completely, because if you do that when you're doing the bottom one, the alternator will be, kind of moving around a bit and get a little bit annoying. So I just left that top bolt in about halfway, and then moved my attention to the bottom one here, and removed this one first in its kind of entirety. And then, as you'll see, it's actually a really long bolt. You'll see it will it'll be longer than you expect. Check this out, guys. So I got to a point, I'm like, all right, surely it's about to fall out. I go and test it by hand, and it kind of just kept on going. Look at this. Check this out. I'm like, oh, yep, nope. She's still going. Check this, and she's still going. Look at that. Oh, big boy. Alrighty, so we got to a point, it finally came out. And there it is, the long boy right there. And as you'll be able to see here, that top bolt now is kind of holding it in place. So once you get to that point that you can remove the bolt, the alternator will basically just about fall out of its place there, out of that kind of cradle area. So let's go through, undo the remainder of the threading of the bolt. You see it's all nice and loose there. Unwind a bit more because this one's also a really long boy. And with that done, you're able to start to wiggle the alternator out of its place. Check this out. Hold it with one hand, unbolt with the other hand, and that's it. The alternator now is all completely freebie. I mean, it's a free willy. Alrighty, so okay, now you can go down and out, but I was going up and out. I just considered it'll be a little bit easier. But just make sure if you're going to go and do the same, you don't want to go banging it against the radiator fins and damage your radiator. So just be very slow, very careful, and she'll come out nice and easy. Beautiful. So remember, guys, if your power steering reservoir or the O-rings are leaking, get them fixed ASAP. So the fluid, unfortunately, it's all situated right above the alternator, so it's all going to leak over time onto and into the alternator and really wear them out. This one had done 360,000 odd Ks, so had a good lifespan, but you really be able to kind of extend the lifespan as much as possible by making sure you don't have that power steering leak. I've actually done one video so far on how to kind of remedy a certain leak, but I'll link that in the description and at the top here on the screen. But you want to make sure before you go through and chuck your new alternator in that everything looks like it's all going to be exactly the same. So the same mounting bolts, same pulley, same amount of ribs on the pulley. At the back you got the same bolting areas, and again, that make sure that before you go ordering a new alternator that you've got the same prong version for the plug, either the 2-pin or 3-pin. Just make sure you're ordering the correct one. Alright, so it's starting to get dark, so I had some extra lights on hand. But now we can start to go through and put the new alternator in, and then, as everyone always says, the installation is the reverse of the removal. So we'll start off by very gently taking the alternator down, and you're able to slightly and slowly put it into place. So I found going from underneath with one hand, I was able to more easily maneuver and jimmy the alternator into its brackets position. You can see there's a bit of like a pivoting that's possible from underneath, and what you want to do is pivot so that the top hole lines up with the top bracket and slot a bolt straight through, and that'll hold the alternator in place. And just before you go tightening up the bolt, you want to make sure you can get it started up by hand very easily. You're not forcing it in, otherwise you'll end up cross-threading the bolts and you have a big headache on your hands. So I tightened that top bolt in most of the way, and then turned my attention to the bolt underneath it. So I went through and did the final torquing right at the end, but to start with, just kind of say 3/4 of the way in, and that was it. So going to the back now, and firstly getting that 10mm bolt for, this is that top point that goes to the bracket, that goes to the actual block. So again, start it by hand, make sure it's going in nicely, and then you can tighten that up as well. Here, remember, you've got that bracket holding the wiring with that 10mm bolt as well, so you can again start that off by hand and get that going. Okay, now with that down snug, we're able to go through and plug in the wiring into the alternator. So nice and easy, just slots straight in and boom chakalaka. Okay, so with that in nice and firm, just double check it, awesome. We can go through and get the 13mm nut that holds the ring terminal of the main power lead here to the back of the alternator. So again, we can get that on started by hand. What I found here was I actually forgot that the rubber boot had actually fallen off the actual cable itself, so I had to undo the nut, put the rubber grommet around, the rubber boot around the cable again, just push it down a little bit and drop the nut. Grab the nut again and can hand start off that nut there as well, and start going through and tightening everything up. Now don't be like me, get yourself a torque wrench and torque these up to the recommended manufacturer settings, because last thing you want, guys, is your alternator coming loose, and that's just a massive headache and an unnecessary situation that you can avoid. So get yourself a torque wrench and torque up to spec. So just go through and double check all the nuts and bolts. So remember, you got 3 at the back, so that's the main power lead one. You can put that rubber grommet straight on over there. Then you've got those 2 remaining 10mm bolts. I started at the one at the top here. Awesome, and with that one torqued up to spec, you can go through and tighten up and torque up this. You don't need to really go too ham on this one because it's just a little metal bracket holding the wiring from dangling around, but just make sure you haven't forgotten to tighten that up. So the back half's done. Now all that's remaining is the 2 bolts at the front, and we can start to put the belt back on and give it all a test. So just tightening up the top one here. Again, remember, get a torque wrench, don't be like me, get a torque wrench, tighten up to manufacturer settings for peace of mind. And now the bottom one, same thing, torque it up to spec. And that's it, we can start with the belt going around next. Beautiful, alrighty. So with that done, we can start to put our belt back around again. So if you've forgotten again where the belt goes, you've got that little image, that diagram already on the top of your bonnet. But if you want, you could start off with a photo actually. Yeah, to get your smartphone out, take a photo of the position of the belt in case it makes a bit more sense for you, if you're a bit more visual. What you want to do is kind of preset the alternator, you can preset the serpentine belt here around every single pulley except for one. What I found was easiest for me was getting the belt around everything. The second last one being the alternator pulley, and you see this power steering pulley is the last one that the belt goes onto. So getting my breaker bar in, turning to the right, that releases the tension. The belt can go straight over that power steering pulley. That's the last pulley that needed the belt, and releasing that tension by releasing that breaker bar, and that's it. So just be careful removing that, and that's it. We can go for a bit of a test now. Awesome. So just if you're not sure, give it a small little crank, make sure the belt is seated properly, hasn't fallen off of any pulleys or anything, and awesome. So get a, if you got one, a little multimeter, chuck it onto the terminals while the car's running, and if you're running at about 14.6, 14.7 volts, that is perfect. That means your alternator is healthy, the system is getting the charge it needs, and awesome. So all is well. Really, all we need to do from here is actually just reinstall the fans and the air duct piping, and that's it. That is the job done. So really with just some basic tools, 10 and 13mm sockets and spanners and a ratchet, and that's it. So good. So at this stage, don't forget to tighten your positive power lead here. And alrighty, so starting off, I went through and went to put the fan shroud back in, so that slides straight in. You can just maneuver around the hoses that you've got, and that kind of mostly gets into place there. And we've got those two 10mm bolts, so those guns go straight in. Sweet, and with that one done, we can do the exact same on the other side, get that 10mm bolt for holding the fan shroud in on that side. Don't forget to go through and connect your fan to the wiring plug itself. But I started off here just putting the air ducting pipe back in. It was a bit firm to go in as well. That's what she said, of course. So a little firm to wiggle and jiggle in. But once it did get into place, the holes for the top of the air ducting pipe here lined up, and I was able to shove the screws in the holes. So guys, that's it. That is the job done. Really, I hope this video is more of an overview for anyone looking to see what kind of steps were involved when I did this job. But if this video helped you out, guys, please let me know in the comments. It's always awesome, you know, hearing and seeing the little stories and wins that people have after watching my videos. So this is a part number of the specific one that I ordered for my, I think it was a 2-pin version that I had. I've got a couple more Falcon videos in the hard drive yet to be edited for you guys, but a quick heads up, unfortunately this car isn't my work car anymore, so there will eventually not be as many videos for the Falcon for a little while, but you can look forward to seeing some Volkswagen Caddy videos. That's been the next little work van that I've got for myself. So for now, look after yourself guys, take care, and I'll catch up with you guys at the next video. Cheers for watching.
Hello everybody, this is the shit Arnold Schwarzenegger accent. You have the alternator problem? I'll alternate your face.